Welcome to the Parkville Living Center's Community Town Hall Forum. We do these forums once a month, and thank you all for joining in, for signing in, and for those in attendance. I also want to say thank you to Parkville Presbyterian Church for allowing us to use the space, our volunteers, our audience, and our greater community, as well as our speakers. Here at the Parkville Living Center, our mission is to celebrate and make space for the spirit of love in our community. Some of the ways we do that are by having a story time for our youth on Thursdays. We have a coffee lounge available Monday through Thursday. We have a program called Money Talk that helps with financial literacy. And of course, we have this monthly town hall forum. This town hall forum is here to tell you to share some aspects of what's going on in our community. We hope to have an honest and thoughtful conversation about the people and services that make up our community. And so if you have any ideas or thoughts, please bring them to us. We want to hear from you. But before we get started, I want to explain the ground rules and how tonight's going to flow. We have 3 presenters. Each of them are going to speak for 15 minutes. And then we're going to follow that up with a 15-minute question and answer panel. We're going to put the tables together and have everyone be able to answer and speak to questions from the audience and from members on Zoom. I will say that the microphones are for the members on Zoom, so if you can, please remember to speak into a microphone. And I'll be repeating the questions that come from Zoom over the microphone, so they'll be recorded on our recording. All right, so let's jump right in. We start tonight with a local business owner who is so much more than that. I'm actually so happy to introduce Kristen Helling, a mother, a wife, author, dog owner, and owner of Parkville Coffee. Kristen, the floor is yours. I'll have your slides up here. There they go.
Thank you, Marcus. So as Marcus said, thank you for that introduction. I love chaos. I own 2 businesses. I own Parkville Coffee, and I also own an independent publishing imprint called Word Wraith Books. I have a toddler at home, and I'm also expecting right now. So yeah, whenever there is a spot in my schedule, I fill it up. And so I get asked often what my inspiration was for opening Parkville Coffee here on Main Street. And it's funny because I actually wasn't the one that opened the shop. I worked for the previous owner for about 5-6 years, and I ended up purchasing the shop from him in 2017. So this talk today is going to kind of be about my journey to ownership with Parkville Coffee and kind of the things that I've done since becoming the owner to involve the community and what I kind of want to do in the future with that as well. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so I went over the quote that my parents told me my whole life. I'm sure you've heard it before because a lot of people say it. I looked online to see if there's actually like an origination to it, and I couldn't find one. So my whole life, my parents would always say, find what you love doing and make money doing it. My parents are entrepreneurs, and so they've always kind of instilled that in me. So naturally, I think it might be on the wrong slide.
We need the previous slide, please.
Yeah. And actually, I chose, quite possibly one of the hardest things there is to make money doing next to being a starving artist, and that is to be a writer. Since I was young, I wanted to be a writer. I wanted to be an author. And so, people don't choose to become a writer or an author because they think they will get rich. They choose to be a writer because of passion and because there's this like storytelling energy inside that just yearns to get out and be told. So I went to college to get my English degree. That seemed like the next step to me. And I went to, community college first, and then I went to Park University. So I am a Park grad of 2012. And I think that this picture that's not coming, not loading.
The next one?
No, it's still on that slide. It should be on number 2. It was just a picture of me in my cap and gown celebrating in the parking lot. But that's okay if it doesn't come up. We'll just imagine it in my burgundy gown. So to pay my way through college, I got a job in financial services as a bank teller, which ended up being great because it helped me to learn budgets, how to build my credit score. Essentially, it gave me like the experience and financial knowledge foundation for my life. And as a young person and someone who would later own 2 businesses, it's really helped giving me a foundation for learning how to do all of those things. So I worked at the bank for a little over 3 years and eventually got to the point where I was so mentally exhausted by the end of the day working, going to school, that I just didn't have any time to write, which was ultimately my goal in the end. So yes, of course, I was writing for my writing assignments for my degree, but I wasn't writing creatively, which was ultimately what was filling my well. So I knew nearing graduation at Park and getting my bachelor's in English writing that if I wanted to be an author, I had to get out of financial services. I had to do something else. I had to find something else that would balance well with that writing. So I was in my capstone seminar class, complaining about the bank. And one of my classmates says casually, "Oh, you should get a job at Parkville Coffee. We need more girls on the staff." And I thought that was funny. And I'm like, okay. My first thought was, where's Parkville Coffee? As a commuter to Park, I was coming from the South Metro, and I would go to class and then leave. I never went further into downtown where the community was and where, the extended community from Park University lived. I didn't even know it existed. So, which is, something that I'm passionate about making connections with. So yeah, that was my first question. And so my second was, what goes better with books than coffee? So after that class ended, I walked over to the shop and I applied and I got the job. And so basically the rest is history. So little did I know that working at the shop would be, a transition. I thought it would be a transition job, leaving college, going into life to become, be an author. And that like walking to that coffee shop changed the course of my entire life. So, okay, you can do the next slide. So I immediately fell in love with it. I fell in love with the story of coffee, where it came from, the global closeness that I received from knowing the families and the farms that we were purchasing the coffee beans from, the story of creating an experience in the form of a cup of coffee or a specialty espresso drink, like shown up there, especially the art and the science that goes into doing something so simple sounding as making a cup of coffee. And most importantly, I fell in love with the story of every community member that walked into the shop and the fact that I could make their day just a little better with a craft that I really enjoyed doing. So the writer in me saw the shop as an ode to original coffee houses. The building that we are housed in was built in 1853. There's so much history there, and the history of coffee houses and those stone walls. I just feel like so many things started in coffee houses: conversations, first dates, business meetings, research studying. And so to continue to my story, I ended up finding the perfect balance between working and writing. And I worked my way up in the ranks over the years. So eventually, nearly 6 years later, I came to another crossroads in my career. So you can do the next slide. At that point, I was the store manager, and I had started a publishing company with a partner. And that's Jenny up there in the top pictures. We had already published several of our own books under it. And so those are just some of the examples of just the different books that I have. Today I have 10 published books, and I'm always working on the next one. So I'm working on the next one now. And everybody asks me how I have time to do that with everything else going on, but you find time for the things that you love. So there's always just snippets of time here and there. And of course I go through, spouts of not writing for a couple months because other things are gaining my attention, but it's all about finding a balance. And so I knew as store manager at that point that I had gone the highest I could go with Parkville Coffee. I either had to make the decision of, approaching the owner and asking about being a partner and buying in, or leaving. So I went and I talked to the previous owner, Josh. I don't know if some of you may know him. And I knew he was showing signs of disinterest. And at that point, I was already running most of the day-to-day operations as the store manager. So I asked him about wanting a partner. And that's when he actually said, actually, I'm sort of on my way out. Mm-hmm. So I make it sound really easy, but it was actually a couple years of negotiating NDAs, complete scrutiny of my resume, financial history, all of that before I was able to secure an SBA loan for the shop to buy it. And so that was probably the most stressful year of my life. But once I signed the papers at closing and got the shop master key in my hands, all of that just sort of melted away. And you can do the next slide. So that's me. It's really small, but I'm holding the key. I just signed the papers, and my husband and I came to the shop, and he took a picture of me holding the key outside the shop. And it's fun to look at this picture because actually a lot about the face of it has changed as well. Just, we redid the benches, we redid the awning. So there's a lot of updates that have happened since then. And this was in 2017. Okay, so you can do the next slide. So just to briefly mention what I've done since taking over, I started, it looks like it's missing quite a few pictures. That's okay. A couple more just need to load on top of that one. But so I started a way to kind of meld my two worlds together, writing and coffee. And so I opened a book nook for local authors to sell their books in. It's in the upstairs of the coffee shop. So I'm working, it's so much fun to network with these local and independent authors that I didn't even know, were in my community, and then give them a place to physically house their books. There's been so many, everything's online now. And I had my books in 2 different local bookstores that closed down over the last few years. And so I was trying to think of and brainstorm a way to give authors another place to sell in person. So we've got our local book nook upstairs, and they also have local art on the walls. And I allow, any type of events like book signings and launch parties and gallery openings, all of those things happen at the shop. We started bottling our cold brew, which was a huge accomplishment for me. I'd wanted to do it for so many years. I felt like we were behind in the coffee community at doing this. So it was really exciting as a small business to find the resources to be able to do that. And I've expanded a lot of our wholesale department, including purchasing a delivery van, doing traveling latte bar events. I did have pictures for all of those, but it's okay. Technology is technology. And so yeah, those are kind of some of the things that I've done. And it's cliche to think that if you enjoy doing the work that you're doing, that you're never working a day in your life. But I'm here to say that I truly believe that that is real. I'm living proof that that cliche is a cliche for a reason. And so if you want to do the next slide, please. Okay. My hope is that whenever somebody walks into my coffee shop on Main Street in downtown and orders a coffee, that they feel our passion for the craft and that they feel, a safe, inclusive space for the community to help build on and to help shape the rest of the shop's story and ultimately all of our stories as well. So thank you.
All right. Thank you so much, Kristen. Gosh, books and coffee, right? It just goes together, and you've shown the story you've told really shows what's possible right here in Parkville and how this community can sustain and thrive and provide and just be there for us through our various life stages. So thank you so much for that. All right. So now we're going to shift gears slightly. I'm going to introduce our next speaker, Eric Bergrud. His relationship with Park University began 30 years ago, next month. So when he enrolled as a student in Park's MPA program. He has worked at Park for more than 22 years, serving currently as its Chief Strategic Communications Officer. He's the voice of Park Pirates Soccer, for whom he serves as women's and men's soccer play-by-play announcer. He also announces the Pirates basketball, softball, and volleyball games. In 2019, he received the Park University Department of Athletics Donald J. Brecken Lifetime Achievement Award. And this evening, he'll provide an overview of the Park Pirates athletics and encourage you to support Parkville College team in the year ahead. So let's welcome Eric.
Thank you, Marcus, and thank you to Parkville Living Center for this opportunity. So when Marcus introduced himself to me and then provided this invitation, we talked about potential topics, and one was Park University history, which is probably a 5-hour presentation he didn't want. So I went a different route, and I was just sitting here before we started reflecting. I could have given a history of Park athletics in the 1900s. So we had baseball players at the turn of the century, if you can imagine, kind of old Cracker Jack motifs. We have pictures of women's basketball going back to the 19 teens. So our history is long, but what I'm here to talk to you about is the recent history. And where the title of my presentation comes.
We're having a slight difficulty. I'm gonna just interrupt for 1 second.
Sure.
This computer here, and I'll just work the slides from up here.
I'll chat for a little bit. I'm going to lead into where this is. So that's quite all right. So the theme of this presentation is Parkville's college team, right? Here's the inspiration for it. So a few years ago, I'm minding my own business, driving through Kansas City, heading down Broadway towards the IRS and Union Station. I University in Columbia saying that the Tigers are Kansas City's college team. And I'm thinking to myself, hey, wait a minute. We've won 7 national championships. How dare they own this area? And so I got back to the office, reached out to our design team and said, hey, can you create a sign that we can put in front of campus that says Parkville's college team? And that's how it happened. So when Marcus invited me to do this, I thought, how am I going to theme this? It's college team, because we have been the college team in Parkville, Missouri for decades. And officially, when you're talking about intercollegiate activities dating back to the 50s. So we've been proud to be local. We've been proud to be part of this community. So what I'm hoping to do today, and I'm going to add, oh, there they go. Next slide, please, Marcus. Thanks. Let me give you a broad overview. First, I'm going to talk about who we are. We're Pirates. We're resilient. We have a little bit of attitude, not too much swagger, although when you come home with a championship banner, you can have a little swagger. Next slide, please. We're not an NCAA school. University of Kansas is, University of Missouri is. We're a member of the National Association of Independent or Intercollegiate Athletics, which is headquartered in downtown Kansas City. They tend to be smaller schools. We also tend to be schools that focus on student athletes, student first, and I'll talk to you a little bit about that as well. In terms of our conference, we're in the Hart Conference, which is centered likewise in Kansas City, and our local rivals are across town. Benedictine, which is just up 45 Highway in Atchison, Mid-American Nazarene University, which is in Olathe, and Baker University, which is in Baldwin City. So we're headquartered. We're here. We are Kansas City, and we've been Kansas City. We have 18 intercollegiate sports. I'm going to talk to you, and it's not just male sports. We're going to talk about what our women do, and we're going to talk about our most recent sport, which is co-ed. And my last bullet, one big set of shoes to fill. Our athletic director, Claude English, has been with us for 29 and a half years, announced his retirement last week. And lo and behold, our president invited me to serve as co-chair of the search committee. So I'm going to be spending a lot of quality time looking not for his replacement. You can't replace a legend, but someone who can step in his shoes and take us to the next level in the 21st century. Next slide, please. So I'm going to talk a little bit about philosophy, particularly when it comes to student athletes. Next slide, please. We believe at Park University in the student athlete model, and academics come first. And the proof behind that is if you look at the GPAs of our student athletes, they outperform the general student population which is pretty significant because you hear stories at big schools about students having problems or athletes having problems finishing classes. It's an expectation that if you come play at Park University, you're going to go to your classes, you're going to take your books with you when you're on the road, and you're part of something bigger than yourself. And so there's a sense of pride in this organization that it's not just about how you perform on the field. It's that you walk across the stage like the experience that you had, and then you can show your parents, you can show your friends, I did it. As part of the NAIA, I should have this memorized because I have to say this before games all the time. NAIA believes in character. And so as a member organization, we participate in their Champions of Character program, which includes 5 core values: integrity, respect, responsibility, sportsmanship, and servant leadership. If you come to play at Park, as I said, you're going to be a student first, you're going to be required to do community service. It's absolute, no ways around it. And here's an example of our women's soccer team working at a food bank this past year. Scores and scores of examples. So when people graduate, not only will they've had an intercollegiate playing experience, more likely than their peers, they will have a college degree. And maybe even more significantly, they've given back to their community. They know, with my degree, I know there's need in the world. I know I'm a leader. I know I can make this world a better place. And so that's something that we try to put together at our university. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the sports. And I mentioned all of them. And I always start with the women's sports. And there's multiple reasons for it, because we believe in equity, but also because I announced soccer. We play double headers and the women's come before the men's. So I always think women's first. So there you go. Next slide, please. So many of the sports are the same for the men and women. Basketball, cross country, golf as an example, soccer. I could spend hours talking about our soccer program, and we're really excited because the schedule got posted on social media today. So starting at the end of this month, I'm going to be spending some quality time across the street on the other side of the church announcing games. Softball, and I'm going to walk you through some of our physical locations so you can get a sense of where they play. Track and field, I'm going to talk to you a lot about our volleyball team, which is an amazing story. And something that they started a couple years ago, which is sort of interesting. And for those of you who live in Parkville, you'll appreciate it. We started a beach volleyball program. So women's volleyball is a fall sport, both at the collegiate level and then the high school level. So we started a beach volleyball program thinking they would play in the spring, thinking they would play in a new sand surface in English Landing Park. What happened a couple years ago at the park? All that sand kind of got mushy. So they've been playing a lot of games on the road, but we'll talk about that as well. Next slide, please. The men, a lot of the same sports: baseball, basketball, cross country, golf, soccer, track and field, and volleyball. The volleyball programs, both men and women, are national champions multiple times. The men's volleyball plays a winter schedule, whereas the women play a fall schedule. But in a lot of these sports that are team sports, we play double headers to not only save time, but to build efficiencies and build camaraderie between the women's program and the men's program. And speaking of camaraderie between women and men, next slide, we added most recently our first co-ed sport, which is esports. And what's significant about this program is a couple-fold. First of all, the inaugural hire was a woman head coach. So if you think kind of out there in the world of gaming, et cetera, you may have this picture of male-dominated, and it has been traditionally male-dominated endeavor, but a woman head coach, co-ed teams. We compete. Actually, there's space under our campus. I'd love to show it to you sometime in what we call the Parkade Battlegrounds. And so think of like this big tricked out video room with big chairs and these massive monitors, and that's how they compete. We compete against schools that you've heard of all over the country, including some of the ones I've mentioned earlier that have launched esports programs, KU and Mizzou, but schools on all coasts. It gives Park an opportunity to compete against peers in a type of endeavor that we wouldn't necessarily do in, say, a baseball or softball. Next slide, please. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the facilities in terms of giving you a picture of where our student athletes compete. Next slide, please. So we'll start from top left. So that beautiful lit field with Parkville Presbyterian Church right across the street in the background is Julian Field, home to our women's and men's soccer. Typically in the fall, we play Saturday afternoons and we play Wednesday evenings. That clearly was not a Saturday afternoon. Hi, my name is Eric Berger. I'm Chief Strategic Communications Officer here at Park University. I'm also the voice of Park Pirates women's and men's soccer. It was my honor in July to speak at the monthly town hall of the Parkville Living Center, and I know we had just a slight technical glitch during the Zoom portion of my presentation. So I want to fill you in on a couple topics I addressed at the end of my conversation. First, I talked about facilities that our teams use not only here on campus, but throughout Parkville. And then I made an appeal to come support Parkville's college team, Park University Pirates. So we'll do that here today. So let's talk a little bit about facilities. And so I can't start talking about facilities without focusing first on our campus. And I'll do it for those of you who are familiar with Parkville, closest to the Parkville Presbyterian Church, where the Parkville Living Center meetings take place. Almost immediately across the street from the church, you will find two great facilities. I'll start from the north and then work closer to campus. So between the Parkville Nature Sanctuary and downtown Parkville, you'll find the Parkville, or the Park University softball complex, which hosts our softball team that plays games in the spring. There's great parking nearby. You'll see lawn chairs where people will just come out and support the team. It's a great place to spend a spring day. Adjacent to that, where I spent a lot of my time as an announcer, is Julian Field, which is the home of Park's women's and men's soccer teams. We play in the fall typically on Wednesday evenings in a doubleheader. The women play first, the men play second, and then on Saturday afternoons. And in addition to hosting Park home games, we've hosted all sorts of professional teams from the United States. We've even had international teams have clinics on our campus, most significantly Manchester United. As you head up the hill in what we call 6th Street, 6th Street is the turn onto our campus, and we like to say to other teams, welcome to 6th Street, because that's where we host our games. The Brecken Sports Center is the home of women's and men's volleyball and women's and men's basketball. On the basketball front, we again play double headers in the winter and then early spring. The women play first and the men play second. Volleyball's a little bit different. The women's volleyball team plays in the fall and the men play in the winter. And what we're proud of is 7 combined national championships for those teams. The women have won 2, the men have won 5. And we love to say to the world that Parkville is the volleyball capital of America. If you go up to the top of the hill, really on the border of where the Riss Lake property line hits, you will find Comfort Field, which is the home of our baseball team. And once again in the spring, it's a great place to bring out a lawn chair, or you can sit in the bleachers and watch our baseball team. We have track and cross country here at Park University. You will notice that there is a track on our campus. It's a 6-lane track, so it's a practice track. Currently, our track teams and our cross country teams compete on the road. We're hoping to look at a feasibility study to bring competitive track, which would mean 8-lane track here on the Parkville campus. Off campus, if you head to West Parkville, our men's and women's golf teams compete at the National, and our women's golf team just this past spring won their conference championship. So they will play, host some tournaments here in the fall, and then they'll be back again in the spring. And then the last team that competes in Parkville, or at least outside, is our beach volleyball team. Well, technically they were supposed to compete in Parkville in brand new pits right across the street in English Landing Park, but they had a little bit of a water issue a couple years ago. So they're competing on the road right now. Finally, I mentioned outdoor teams. I also mentioned above ground teams. Underground on the campus is our Park Esports program that actually competes in what we call the Parkade Battlegrounds. They're co-ed, they compete in 4 different games, and it's been an opportunity to take sports into a new realm. We've been very happy with the level of competition here on this campus, and what's been great about this, it's so new esports are, that we've been able to compete with schools we wouldn't normally compete in sports with. Think the University of Kansas, think University of Missouri, and schools all across the country. Those are the facilities that we use here in Parkville, and I'll close by making an appeal to all Parkville residents. This is your university, this is your team, Parkville's college team. We welcome you to come out this fall to support Park Pirates. You can find their information on their website, parkathletics.com. All home matches are streamed on parkathletics.tv, and you can find Park Pirates on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Again, thank you for your support of the Parkville Living Center. Thank you for your support of your university, your college team, and I hope that you take an opportunity this fall to really get invested in your community. We know that we're a great part of it, and I look forward to seeing you at a Park Pirates match soon.
We're good to go. Well, again, I'll be the third one to say thank you, Marcus, for this invitation. I really appreciate it. Loved your story around the Parkville Coffee House, and of course, Park University is our backyard as we do that. And I think one of the interesting things, you don't mind going ahead and starting the slides when you can. When you talk about the Park Hill School District, I always say there is no place on Google Maps called Park Hill. There's a Park Hills, and you can find that on the eastern part of the state below St. Louis, but there's no place called Park Hill. And I think that's what makes us so unique, because it is about our community, and it's always been about community first. Many times we are called the Parkville School District, so congratulations on that. It does happen quite a bit, but we are proud of that. And I think it speaks so highly of how we work together and the expectations we have for one another. So I'm excited to share with you just some of the good news of what's been going on in Park Hill and what we're looking at in the future, and just some basic information about it also that you may not know. I think it's interesting to know that as we continue to grow and continue to diversify, it's important for our community to know what we look like and what's going on. So let me share some of that with you, if you don't mind, please. So first off, I'd like to share out that the good news, and it kind of piggybacks on what Eric was sharing about high academic expectation. It is an expectation in our community that we have high academic success. And we continue to reach that, where our composite ACT score is 22.4, and that's of school districts that give their students, 100% of their students, the ACT exam. We do that. It was mandated back in 2017 and 2018 with the state. The state no longer funded it, but we feel like that's important for students to have access in the future, because they don't always know what they want to do right after high school. And you need that ACT test many times, and we don't want them to have to go back and get that again. And so we're very, very pleased with that. And it's amazing that we've been able to do that in spite of the pandemic last year. So that's our scores that just came in. So we're very excited about that from last year. Very excited about that. We did have 5 perfect ACT scores, which is an amazing thing in itself that you would have that. You will notice 2 of them look a little bit alike. That is twins, bless their hearts, that both scored perfect. Can't imagine the competition in that household as it goes forward. I think it's amazing. I'm also very proud of the young lady that's up there. She is a sophomore at Park Hill South. And so I'm excited to see the future for her. And can she get 3 perfect scores in a row? I don't know. I guess we'll find out. But we just have amazing students also. We're very proud of that. We also check with our community and what it would be like for them, and with our parents. And 91% members of our community were likely to recommend Park Hill to them on our annual phone survey that we do. And that's such an important piece, because that talks about your brand. How do people view you, and how do they view what they're doing within your business and your organization? And while we are in the education business, we are a business. It's an interesting business because we are in the people business. And so we're excited about that our people believe in us, and they do tell our story. And I think that's incredibly important, and I appreciate it. I'd also like to point out, if you don't mind, on the next slide, that both Park Hill and Park Hill South rank in the top 20 of the U.S. News and World Report. And that's based on the AP exams that we give, and that process, again, talking about our high academics. Once again, on the high academics would be our next slide, where we did have 15 National Merit finalists and semifinalists and commended scholars this past year. Just a wonderful number, and just a wonderful opportunity for these students and for their future. And we're glad that we can meet them and be at that place. Besides wonderful academics, the other thing that we do that I think is incredibly important to our taxpayers and to our patrons is to be financially responsible and good just stewards of the taxpayer dollars that we are given. For 13 years in a row, we have been awarded the Meritorious Budget Award. And just a little bit about that recognition, it's more than just what does your budget look like, but it requires us to do projections 3 years out, 5 years out, and 7 years out. And if you look on our district website, you can find our demographic profile that we do on a yearly basis. By combining that with our financial scorecards that we use, we're actually able to predict out where we're going to be, how we're going to be using that money in the future, and what those tax dollars will be spent for. And so we're very excited about that, and we think it's an important piece. Another important piece is just taking good care of this again. And last fall, we were able to refund. In the school world, it's called refunding instead of refinancing. So just like refinancing on your house, we were able to refund some bonds on Tiffany Ridge Elementary School. They were callable and we could refund those because the interest rates were just so good. You're watching the housing market or anything else right now, it is hot, hot, hot because of that. And by doing that, we've saved our taxpayers $4.3 million over the next 10 years of the life of that loan. And those are the types of steps that I think are just critically important to take care of what we've got. And we always want to do that. One of the things that we talk about also is just that we do have high achievement and low tax rates. And people they're like going, really, how do you know and how do you compare that? And so I'll give you, in the Northland, I think the big three schools are, of course, Parkville, they're North Kansas City, and they are Liberty as you go across there. And we're doing that. And so we do have the lowest rates. We have one of the lowest rates that are out there. For example, our total tax levy for Parkville is $5.3955. If you're in North Kansas City, it's $6.20. And if you're in Liberty, it's $6.45. And so we really feel like we are trying to give the very best bang for the buck and getting the most out of every dollar that our taxpayers provide to us. And we want to be good stewards of that, and we think it's incredibly important. We are planning for the fall, and it seems like we're planning for it differently every day. I'll just be very frank with you. It has been a very interesting and fascinating last 18 months. And I think it has been that way for the schools, but I know it has been for our families, and it has been for each of you in your work or whatever it is that you're doing. Our lives have just been kind of upside down a little bit with COVID. I think a lot of us thought a lot of this was hopefully going to be in our rearview mirror. And unfortunately, that's not the case that we have right now. But as we plan for the fall, we do offer our students in-person learning, and we do have a full online program that we offer our students as we prepare for the fall. And so we want to take care of that and do the very best we can. We're also continuing to work with our health departments and following those different mandates. And as you saw today, CDC put out a different recommendation. And I think the thing that I would talk about the most is that in that area, those are recommendations. Those are not mandates. And so a recommendation is a little bit different. We are strongly recommending mask wearing. I'll go ahead and talk about that since I've got my mask with me tonight. I'll just talk about that. It will be fully recommended, strongly recommended based on what the CDC just shared today. Do I think that could change in the future days? Yes. I have learned over this past 18 months, and I bet you have too, that literally 1 week of COVID feels like a month. And what changes in a month is like a year. And so we will continue to ride this, but I have confidence in a community. Somebody asked me once, they said, how are people dealing with this and how are they working and even how are they visiting with you about it? And I said, here's the coolest thing about Parkville. We don't always have to agree, but we always do it in a professional and a respectful manner. And I appreciate that about our community. And I really do mean that. The other piece that is important to us is as we talk about this is just our enrollment history. And I think this is fascinating. This is really unusual for a school district. And so if you go back to where we were until last year, we were at 37 years in a row of 1.5% to 2% growth each year, which is astounding. It makes us look like geniuses sometimes on how you plan, but with such steady growth, because what you normally see is these spikes of growth of housing and then back and forth. And we have been very blessed to have that steady growth. Last year we were just flat last year because of COVID. I believe a lot of families kept kindergartners home. And so it'll be interesting to see this fall when we start on August the 23rd, what that will look like. And so that's an important piece. The other part that's important is just to know, who are we? What does Parkville look like? I think there's a lot of conceptions about what they think the Parkville School District looks like. But where we are in 2020 and 2021 at our population, we had a Our white population was at 66%. Our Black population was at 12, Hispanic at 10. And then multiracial is our fastest growing group. It is the multiracial group at 6%. And then we have 3% Asian and 1.2% of our island Pacific. And I don't believe that's what people think about when they think about the Parkville School District. And that really leads me to the next slide. And so we did make some changes, and we've had a lot of conversation around access, inclusion, and family engagement. And another big point for us is removing barriers to opportunities for all of our students. The Parkville School District does not use any course fees. So you may remember from your high school days or where your child may be going is you had to go pay for art class if you want to be in art class, or you had to pay for foods or clothing, those type of things. Those are all taken care of within our district because we don't want that to be a barrier that would keep a student from finding their full potential. We also provide transportation for our professional studies programs. We want our students to be able to have those lifetime experiences because we know if they can have them now, it sets them up for success in the future. And so a big part of that is just how do you allow access and inclusion for all of our students? And also, even this past year was great because on Zoom, for example, there were some things that you may like about Zoom or you may not like about Zoom, but one of the cool parts really was with our PTAs. I'm going to brag on them. They did such an incredible job. And by using Zoom, they were able to include more families and provide that. And we want to continue that and improve our family engagement. So we have a new director that's going to oversee our access and inclusion and family engagement to making sure that we are removing barriers for all students, because I don't know a single parent that doesn't want the very best for their child. And so we want to make sure that we're doing that because we believe that's what Parkville is. And so I tried to get that as quickly as I could. I think we hit it. I hope we did. But we are so proud to be a part of this community. And we just thank you. And thank you for this opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Coward. Thank you for pulling back the curtain and showing us how our school district is involved in creating this community that we're a part of, and yeah, making that connection there and showing that the schools and the youth really set the stage for the lives and the neighbors and the community that we live in. So it's a beautiful thing. Thank you for that. All right, so we're gonna just take a minute and transform this into a panel. I'm gonna move the desks. We're going to squeeze together slightly and then open it up for questions and answers, both in person and from via Zoom. So 1 second, please. Okay, so for the question and answer portion of this town hall, I'm going to ask our technical director if there's any questions. Actually, I can just pull up the computer here and I can just roll them. So 1 second. We got quite a little hiccup, so it's supposed to go a little bit differently. 1 moment, please. All right. Yes, there are some questions. I guess while I'm sifting through this, are there any questions of the audience in the room? Please. And just to restate, I'm going to ask the questions in the microphone for the people on Zoom, and that's has Parkville considered year-round schooling due to COVID?
The answer is because of our summer school program is so robust. This year we had over 5,500 students in our summer school program in the month of June. And then we also offered a second program because we wanted to make sure that students that may have had educational lags last year had an opportunity, particularly in the area of reading and math at the elementary level. We offered a special program for them. And so we really feel like that is driving that. And it's almost year-round school at this time, if you want to know the truth. At this time, we don't have the online school, the full year-round school piece. The way that frankly, the way the funding is set up in the state of Missouri is you are paid for your regular school year. And so we follow within that category. Then you're paid separately for your summer school options. And so that's why they're listed differently. Summer school in the state of Missouri is not a requirement versus what is during the regular school year. So I think a lot of it is going to go back to just what is the state going to fund? It would be the same response that I would have around early childhood about expanding that. And what is early childhood going to look like in the future? I think those are conversations they're having at the legislature right now around early childhood. You may remember a few years ago that, kindergarten was added, in the 60s, 70s, somewhere in there. I think it's an interesting piece. Even if you look at kindergarten in the state of Missouri, kindergarten is currently not required. It's required to come to school at the age of 6 in first grade. And so I think it's fascinating that over time, kindergarten has just become a standard and everybody sends their child. But I think we need to get a few of those things in place in order to expand our programs out. I don't know if it's against or not against. I think we still are locked into what I would call the agrarian calendar. And our families enjoy their summers and they enjoy their time as we do that. And so I think it's just a different look as it would play out. It also just now the way the system set up would change how you would do, for example, your sports they're all connected with each other and the other schools. So I think if all the schools went in that direction, and then I think we could do that and provide that opportunity. But I think there's other opportunities that we can do within our school that would help our students.
Thank you, Sally. We have a question on Zoom for our for Kristen from the Parkville Coffee House, and that is, what is the impact of the growth in downtown Parkville over the last few years? Do you have more street traffic, for example? No, you can pick it. It should be all right.
It's definitely been significant. I mean, everybody has seen the growth that downtown Parkville has experienced, and they said over the last 3 years. So I've been, with the shop since 2012. So I've seen a lot of businesses come and go and grow, and the attitude that we have at the shop is we're excited. The atmosphere downtown is very energetic right now, and it's exciting to be a part of that. And the community is, we all grow together. So when I see other businesses thrive, we thrive. So I kind of always, we always try to reach out as business owners to the other business owners and see what we can do to lift each other up, because the success of others is my success. And so, yeah, I have definitely seen a lot more foot traffic. COVID definitely had its challenges, and we had to do a lot of pivoting for our community. But ultimately, it's been really, really exciting downtown. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'll just piggyback on
Sure.
that. A great story I heard from Kristen was about the opening of the other coffee shop downtown. And I was asking her, how has that impacted your business? And she gave the best response. It was, I like competition. I want people to have choices of where to go so that when they come into Parkville Coffee, we know they want to be here. And I just love that answer. And it really speaks to, I think, how you want to serve the community and how you want the community to have what they desire, right?
Mm-hmm. Right.
And not just whatever they can get. So
Right, exactly.
So I think that's a great way to look at it, and it really helped me to think of Parkville Coffee as a community coffee shop and not just a coffee shop.
Yeah, thank you.
And so I had a question for Eric. In terms of sports rivalries, are there any schools, teams, or sports that are particular rivals to the Park University Pirates, so that we can help cheer on our team through those games?
One of the challenges of speaking through the mask is you can't see my grin underneath my mask. It's evolved over the years just based on choices that schools have made in terms of moving to different conferences. Let me give you a longer answer than a short answer. And so what I didn't tell you when I was talking about the prowess of our sports, one of the things we're most proud of is that it's a diverse student athlete population, including international diversity. And one of the most challenging things we've experienced as an athletic department, as a university, is xenophobia on the road. And so we've had rivals, one in particular that we won't play anymore because of the way our international student athletes were treated by their fans. So, I mean, we believe in our student athletes and there's lines that we won't cross. That being said, in terms of where we are now, Baker University is a pretty big rival. They recruit in the Park Hill School District, so we're challenging them for student athletes. I think what's going to be it's a new conference for us, but Benedictine College is not that far away. You get on 45 highway and all of a sudden you're in Atchison. I think they're definitely going to be a rival for us, but it means a lot to our student athletes because not all of them are from the Kansas City area. The ones from the Kansas City area are really fortunate their parents and relatives can come. The ones that are coming from different parts of the country, or even more so coming from, say, a Brazil or from Kenya to see people in the stands when their families can only watch online, that means a lot. So any support we would definitely appreciate.
Yeah, definitely. We'll share all the links too on this video and on our website, and you'll definitely see some promotions for those sports because it's kind of near and dear to me.
If I could add one more thing, we've been, Dr. Coward and I were talking on the side about COVID, and there's a lot we don't know and what to expect this fall. They went through, let's just call it an interesting year in 2021. We went through an interesting year, which included no spectators at most of our games. But if you think historically, and we're in a church that has witnessed a lot of history, has experienced a lot of history. We've had students that have served this country since the Spanish-American War, that survived the Spanish flu, that survived the Great Depression. And so, yeah, it seems like things are challenging for us. But if you look at the perspective, this school district has been through a lot. Where Parkville Coffee is right now survived a pretty awesome, in a negative way, flood in 1993. We're all going to overcome. It's just going to be a question of pulling together, doing the right things, making the right decisions, whether it's for our customers or in our cases for our students. And we're going to be stronger for it in the future.
Thank you. We do have another question here online, but I wanted to just ask if there were any questions in the audience at this time.
I have one, and this is for each panelist. Just in the spirit of bringing communities together, if you could, or if you saw an area where the community could be more helpful to your mission, what might you encourage the audience to take away with you?
Just to restate that, and then we'll just go down the line here, if you don't mind starting.
Sure.
The question was, in the spirit of community and organizations and engagement, how can the community support the efforts of each of your respective organizations?
That's a really, really great question. And thank you for asking it. For us, it's just continual support, and not necessarily in just dollars, but also word of mouth. And especially in this time of COVID, I've decided to take, a very better safe than sorry approach to the pandemic with my business. And I feel like we've been more conservative with protocols. We've been more strict, I guess you could say, with protocols concerning it, because my decision-making process was always community first. And even though there may be some people that the pandemic doesn't affect as much as others, we still have those others in our community that are vulnerable that we do need to protect. And so we have gotten quite a bit of, you can go and look at our Google reviews. We've gotten a lot of backlash just because of how political this pandemic has been made. But we've also gotten a lot of community support. Sometimes it feels like the negativity is louder than the support, but whenever the support is there, and we definitely have a very awesome community that does show up, it speaks volumes. So I think even just, just hearing one person say, thank you so much for, we kept our mask mandate for quite a long time. Thank you so much. My son is immunocompromised and we feel safe coming here. Just hearing that from one person, it makes it all worth it to me. So I think probably, just support from the community continuously all around is the only thing that we ask for.
Thank you. I think we have multiple different ways in Park Hill that you can support us. Of course, our education foundation would be one, I would say, as we go forward with clothing center, being a part of our community, just coming to the events and watching the students, whether they're on the field, they're performing. We have amazing, our arts department is amazing, our fine arts department, and I would encourage you to do that. But I really would like to piggyback on what Kirsten said, because I think it's true. I guess mine would just be, if we're going to err, let's err on the side of kindness as we do this. And I think that is just such a key piece for us, because I think it's easy to be on the outsides on either side of this piece, but the hard work, and I keep saying this over and over, it's in the middle. And so coming together in the middle to solve these problems together identifies the blind spots, but also identifies the needs on both sides. And so how do we do that? And I think that is just through, I think the term I would use is one of my Board of Education's, one of their norms is just, if we would just use best intentions, we would assume good intentions instead of just assuming and hearing a sound bite and making a judgment. And so I think if we can do that as a community and lead the way and actually model that for my students and for our young ones, I think that would be tremendous.
Wow, what do I say now? So our mission at Park is transforming lives by providing access to quality higher education. And so we have a responsibility on campus, but there's an opportunity for the community to engage. There's this great Missouri road called 9 Highway or Highway 9, depending on your vernacular, that cuts between the church and our property. And you'd be surprised over the 20-something years I've worked at Park, how many people I talked in the community who have never made a left turn or a right turn to get on campus. They every day back and forth, they just keep driving past. Oh, that's a beautiful campus. You make that left turn on, or you make that right turn on, depending on that perspective, you're going to meet some amazing people that may be the first in their families ever to attend a college class, that are passionate about making a difference in the world, whether they decide they want to open up a coffee house or write a novel or serve in a nonprofit, or as many of our students do, teach in the Park Hill School District. There's an opportunity for community to be mentors. There's opportunity for community to provide jobs. There's opportunity for community members just to engage. And our campus is open, at least knock on wood, it's open right now. So we invite everybody on board.
Awesome. Thank you so much. All right, we got a question come in for Dr. Cowherd. With the growth rate in Park Hill School District historically, do you anticipate additional schools being built in the next few years? And if so, where?
I love those loaded questions. Those are always great to have in there. That's the number one question. But I think as we do this, we do have a plan that's already in place that our board has been following for several years. So we have an enrollment-based long-range facility plan, and we have key points that we're looking for on enrollment dates. And so when enrollment hits certain numbers, that is the time that would tell us it's time to build more schools. And so that really would be the key piece of that. And I think it's a fascinating thing because you can do two things when you're talking about construction of new facilities. You can either use growth, you can either use projected growth or actual growth. And we have chosen to do actual growth. And so basically it really is the back ends and the seats before we build. And so that's why you'll see mobile units around our campuses from time to time. And we've got them right now. I'll be honest with you. We've got them at Union Chapel. I have them at Hawthorne. I have them at Chin. I have them at Parkville High School. I have them at Renner. We have lots of that because we do see that growth. And it's not just student enrollment growth that we're looking at. We're also looking at programming, whether it's our gifted program, for our special education program, our English learners program, whatever those programs we have, those all take space also. And so those are key pieces. And so as we do that, we will look at that. As far as where in the future, we don't have that located at this time. And when we do, we'll announce that to the public. I think it's a fascinating thing in the Park Hill area. And I think if you talk to any developer here, land is expensive here. It's an important, it's a piece. And I grew up on a farm. I'm kind of a farm girl. And so I'm used to price per acre, and it's price per square foot in the Park Hill School District. And so it's an interesting piece that we have, and we have interesting topography here too. And so it creates a beautiful opportunity when you're done, but also a wonderful challenge when you start. So we'll communicate that out when we have more information.
Awesome. I think she's heard questions like that before.
Never in my life.
An excellent answer. And yeah, those resources, those master plans, those projection guides that are hidden in websites that we don't look at often. you know, those are some of those gems, and, you know, the schools have them, the cities have them, and those are resources that we hope to kind of make a little bit more accessible to our community, because they are there and hard work has gone into planning and making those. And sometimes there's just a little bit of a gap between the plans and the community. And so I want to circle back, and unless there were any other questions, I didn't see any more online, and I don't believe there are any in the audience. And so we're gonna wrap up here, and I just wanted to circle back and really highlight the ways that we've heard to discover, explore, and engage our community, and others in our community, and ourselves, and explore our own journeys. And Parkville can facilitate that. And the Parkville Living Center is here to help with that as well. If you have any questions, ideas, or inspirations towards community, not sure where to go, where to start, how to begin these conversations, that's what the Parkville Living Center aims to be. So, so yeah, thank you all for your attendance. We're right at our hour mark, so we did what we said we were going to do, and we thank you for your thoughtful and honest questions, for having this very civil discussion that helps to explore the individuals and organizations that make up our community, and we encourage these conversations to continue as you leave this space. In fact, I'll be going out to the crack to have a drink or two. If anyone wants to come and join and continue these conversations, we can do that there. All are welcome. And as we leave, let's keep in mind the mission of the Parkville Living Center, and know that a place like this exists here in our community. And that's to celebrate and make space for the spirit of love in our community. So thank you all for attending, and have a good night.
Thank you.